The rain hammered against the windows of our little cottage in the Cotswolds, each drop a relentless reminder of the storm raging inside me. Alaric, a 43-year-old software engineer, had always found solace in the predictable rhythm of my life with my wife, Bronte. We'd met in university, two awkward souls drawn together by a shared love of literature and a quiet understanding. 20 years later, we were still together, or so I thought. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly. Bronte, a vibrant and passionate art teacher, began spending more time at the school, claiming extra hours were needed for a new art program. I didn't question it. I trusted her implicitly. It'd always been the steady one, the anchor in our relationship, providing the financial stability while she pursued her artistic passions. I believed in supporting her dreams, even if it meant sacrificing some of my own. But then came the late-night phone calls, hushed whispers in the hallway, and the way she'd flinch when I touched her. I tried to brush it off, attributing it to stress, to the pressures of her job. But a nagging unease began to fester in my gut, a cold knot of suspicion that wouldn't unravel. One evening, Bronte said she had a meeting with the school board. I offered to drive her, but she insisted on taking the train. "It's easier," she said, avoiding my gaze. "I might be late, so don't wait up." That night I couldn't sleep. The rain continued its relentless assault, mirroring the turmoil in my mind. I tossed and turned, haunted by a sense of foreboding. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, I got out of bed and went downstairs. I found myself drawn to her laptop, sitting innocently on the kitchen table. I knew I shouldn't, but the need to know, to confirm or deny my suspicions, was overwhelming. With trembling hands, I opened it. Bronte never changed her password, a testament to the trust we once shared. My heart hammered in my chest as I navigated to her email. There it was, a message from someone named Caspian. The subject line was simply "Tonight." I clicked on it, and the world as I knew it shattered. The email was filled with intimate details, plans for a rendezvous at a hotel in a nearby town. The words swam before my eyes, each sentence a dagger twisting in my heart. It was a confession, a declaration of love, a betrayal of everything I held sacred. I sank into a chair, numb with shock. Caspian, who was Caspian? A colleague, a friend, someone she'd met online. The possibilities swirled around me, each one more painful than the last. I scrolled through their previous messages, piecing together the puzzle of their affair. It had been going on for months, hidden beneath a facade of normalcy. They'd met at an art conference, a chance encounter that had blossomed into something forbidden. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. The woman I loved, the woman I'd built my life with, had been lying to me, deceiving me, betraying me in the most intimate way imaginable. I closed the laptop, my hands shaking. I couldn't breathe. I stumbled outside into the pouring rain, desperate for air. The cold water soaked through my clothes, but it did nothing to cool the burning rage that consumed me. I spent the rest of the night wandering the streets, lost in a sea of despair. I couldn't comprehend how she could do this to me, how she could throw away everything we had built together. Was I not enough? Had I failed her in some way? As dawn broke, I returned to the cottage, exhausted and broken. I knew I couldn't stay there, not with the knowledge of her betrayal hanging in the air. I packed a bag filled with the essentials and left a note on the kitchen table. "I know," it read. "I'm leaving." I drove aimlessly for hours, not knowing where I was going, not caring. I ended up in Brighton, a seaside town I'd always loved. I checked into a small hotel overlooking the ocean and spent the day staring out the window, watching the waves crash against the shore. The next few days were a blur. I barely ate, barely slept. I replayed the events of the past few months in my mind, searching for clues I had missed, for signs I had ignored. I felt like an idiot, a fool who had been blind to the truth. Finally, I decided I needed to confront her. I called Bronte, my voice trembling. She answered, her tone guarded. "Alaric." "Where are you?" she asked. "I know about Caspian," I said, my voice flat. There was a long silence. "Alaric, I don't," I interrupted. "Just tell me why." "I don't know," she said, her voice breaking. "I was unhappy. I felt trapped. I needed something more, and you thought cheating on me was the answer," I asked, my voice rising. "No, of course not," she said. "It just happened." "It just happened," I repeated, incredulous. "You planned a rendezvous at a hotel. That doesn't just happen." She started to cry. "I'm sorry, Alaric, I never meant to hurt you, but you did," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "You destroyed everything." I hung up the phone, unable to bear another moment of her lies and excuses. I knew then that there was no going back. Our marriage was over. I spent the next few weeks sorting through the wreckage of our life together. I hired a lawyer, filed for divorce, and started the painful process of dividing our assets. Bronte didn't contest anything. She seemed resigned to her fate. As the divorce proceedings dragged on, I learned more about Caspian. He was a sculptor, a charismatic and successful artist who had swept Bronte off her feet. He was everything I wasn't: confident, adventurous, and exciting. I couldn't help but compare myself to him, to wonder what Bronte saw in him that she didn't see in me. Was I too predictable, too boring? Had I become complacent in our marriage? One day my lawyer called me with some unexpected news. "Alaric, I think you should know something," she said. "Caspian is married." I was stunned. "Married? You're sure?" "Yes," she said. "His wife contacted me. She found out about the affair and wants to use it in her own divorce proceedings." I felt a strange sense of satisfaction. Bronte had been betrayed just as she had betrayed me. The irony was almost too much to bear. I decided to confront Caspian. I tracked him down to his studio in London and waited for him to arrive. When he finally appeared, he looked surprised to see me. "Alaric," he said, his voice wary. "What are you doing here?" "I wanted to meet the man who destroyed my marriage," I said, my voice cold. Caspian shifted uncomfortably. "Look, I'm sorry about what happened," he said. "I never meant to hurt anyone, but you did," I said. "You hurt Bronte, you hurt your wife, and you hurt me." "It's complicated," he said, his voice defensive. "No, it's not," I said. "You made a choice. You chose to betray your wife and to seduce mine." I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there alone and ashamed. I didn't need to say anything more. His own actions would be his punishment. The divorce was finalized a few weeks later. I sold the cottage in the Cotswolds and moved to Brighton permanently. I started a new job, made new friends, and began to rebuild my life. It wasn't easy. There were days when the pain of Bronte's betrayal was almost unbearable, but I refused to let it define me. I was determined to move on, to find happiness again. One evening I was walking along the beach when I saw Bronte. She was sitting on a bench, staring out at the ocean. I hesitated for a moment, then walked over to her. "Bronte," I said, my voice tentative. She looked up, her eyes filled with sadness. "Alaric," she said softly. We sat in silence for a few minutes, the only sound the crashing of the waves. "How are you?" I asked finally. "Not good," she said. "Caspian left me. He went back to his wife." I didn't say anything. I didn't feel any satisfaction, only a deep sense of pity. "I made a mistake, Alaric," she said, her voice trembling. "The biggest mistake of my life." "I know," I said, "but it's too late now." "I miss you," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I miss us." "I'm sorry, Bronte," I said. "But I can't go back. I need to move on." I stood up and walked away, leaving her alone on the beach. I knew I was doing the right thing, but it didn't make it any easier. Years have passed since then. I've built a good life for myself in Brighton. I have a fulfilling career, a close circle of friends, and a sense of peace I never thought I'd find again. Bronte, on the other hand, has struggled. She lost her job at the school and has been unable to find another one. Her reputation was tarnished by the affair, and she's become something of a pariah in our old social circle. I occasionally hear about her through mutual friends. She's still alone, still regretting her choices. I feel sorry for her, but I can't help her. She made her bed, and now she has to lie in it. I've learned a lot from this experience. I've learned that trust is a fragile thing, easily broken. I've learned that people are capable of great cruelty and betrayal. And I've learned that even in the face of heartbreak, it's possible to find strength and resilience. I'll never forget Bronte or the pain she caused me, but I refuse to let her define my life. I am Alaric, and I am a survivor. I have moved on, and I am happy. Sometimes, late at night, when the rain is beating against my windows, I think about her. I wonder if she ever thinks about me, if she ever regrets her choices. And I hope, for her sake, that she does. But then I turn over and go back to sleep, knowing that my future is brighter without her. I once believed in a love that would last forever. I was wrong. But I still believe in love. I believe that somewhere out there, there is someone who will love me for who I am, someone who will never betray my trust. And I'm determined to find her. I am Alaric, and my story is one of betrayal, heartbreak, and ultimately hope. I wanted to share something more, and it's about a recent encounter that brought everything full circle. A few weeks ago, I attended a local art exhibition here in Brighton. I've always appreciated art, and I thought it would be a pleasant way to spend an evening. As I was admiring a particularly striking sculpture, I heard a familiar voice, Alaric. "Is that you?" I turned around to see Caspian standing there, looking older and more worn than I remembered. He was alone, and his eyes held a mixture of surprise and something akin to shame. "Caspian," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "It's been a while." We stood in silence for a moment, the awkwardness palpable. Finally he spoke. "I wanted to apologize," he said, his voice low, "for everything, for what I did to you, to Bronte, to my wife." I nodded slowly, unsure of what to say. "It's in the past," I said finally. "There's nothing you can do to change it." "I know," he said, "but I needed to say it. I've carried a lot of guilt over the years. My wife eventually left me and my career took a nosedive. Karma, I suppose." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the regret etched on his face. He was a broken man, haunted by his past actions. "I hope you find peace, Caspian," I said, my voice softer than I intended. "We all deserve that," he nodded, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Thank you, Alaric," he said. "That means a lot." We exchanged a few more words, then parted ways. As I walked away, I realized that I no longer felt any anger towards him. I had forgiven him, not for his sake, but for my own. The encounter with Caspian was a turning point for me. It allowed me to finally put the past behind me and move forward with a clear conscience. I realized that holding onto anger and resentment only hurts yourself. Forgiveness, on the other hand, is liberating. I am now in a new relationship with a wonderful woman named Isolde. She is kind, compassionate, and supportive, and she loves me for who I am. We have built a strong and loving partnership based on trust and respect. I have learned from my past mistakes and am committed to making this relationship work. Life is full of surprises, both good and bad, but it's how you respond to those surprises that defines you. I chose to respond to betrayal with resilience, to heartbreak with hope, and to anger with forgiveness. And I am grateful for the life I have built, a life filled with love, laughter, and peace. And as a final thought, I want to share something that happened just last week. I received a letter from Bronte. It was the first time I'd heard from her in years. In her letter, she wrote about her struggles and her regrets. She admitted that she had made terrible choices and that she was still paying the price for them. She also expressed her gratitude for the good times we had shared and her hope that I had found happiness. What touched me most was her apology. She wrote that she was truly sorry for the pain she had caused me and that she hoped I could one day forgive her. I sat with her letter for a long time, rereading it several times. And then I did something I never thought I would do. I wrote her back. In my letter, I told her that I had forgiven her. I told her that I understood that she had been unhappy and that she had made mistakes. I also told her that I hoped she could find peace and happiness in her life. I didn't expect her to write back, but a few days later, I received another letter from her. In it, she thanked me for my forgiveness and told me that it had given her a sense of closure. I don't know what the future holds for Bronte, but I hope she finds the happiness she deserves. And I know that I have finally closed the chapter on our past and am ready to embrace the future with open arms. My story is a testament to the power of forgiveness, the resilience of the human spirit, and the enduring hope for a better tomorrow. A 43-year-old software engineer living in the Cotswolds with his wife, Bronte. He is betrayed when he discovers Bronte is having an affair with a sculptor named Caspian. He confronts them both, divorces Bronte, and eventually moves to Brighton. Years later, he encounters Caspian again, who apologizes. Alaric finds forgiveness and moves on to a new, happier relationship with a woman named Isolde. He even receives a letter from Bronte, expressing her remorse, and Alaric responds with forgiveness, bringing closure to their shared past. To anyone reading this, remember that even in the darkest of times, hope and healing are always possible. Never give up on yourself, and never lose faith in the power of forgiveness. Your future is waiting, and it can be brighter than you ever imagined.